Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a review, and it is a review that is a long time coming because I've had this bottle right around the time it came out, maybe a year or so after it came out. I think I bought it, and this is from the House of Bortnikoff, which made many appearances yesterday on my 7,000 subscriber blowout video where we did 77 of the artisanal houses, let's call it. So a lot of Ensars, Aries Ladores, and Dmitry Bortnikoff's brand, Bortnikoff. And today we're going to talk about Amber Cologne. So Amber Cologne came out in 2019. When I bought it in 2020, it was priced around $180 for 50 mil, which for this type of fragrance is just absolutely phenomenal. Actually, I'm going to do a fresh couple sprays here because it is a cologne, and so you can kind of reapply. Although it is a eau de parfum in concentration, so it's trying to recreate the smell of a vintage cologne, but using some materials that they wouldn't have used in the fine French houses of the past. So, for example, if you know Acqua de Parma's Colonia, now, I don't have Colonia, but I do have Colonia Intensa, which is like a more intense version, because the normal citrusy colognes are boring to me. I'm not a big fan of them. Not a big fan at all. However, that's the reason I like Amber Cologne so much, and we'll talk about kind of what it does that differentiates it. But Amber Cologne takes that sort of cologne structure and fortifies it with kind of a base of real ambergris and oud, okay? And so we'll talk about kind of the way that it smells. But if you know some of these vintage colognes, actually one of my favorites, it's a niche cologne done by the house of Parfums de Nicolai, Patricia Nicolai's house. And it's called Cologne Sologne, which I think is just a great freaking name. This is the vintage bottle. I don't think it comes in this presentation anymore. I think it's been changed. But this is fantastic juice. I'll review Cologne Sologne one day, probably this summer whenever it's just scorchingly hot and I want a cologne to just kind of cool down on. Another one is Creed's Selection Verte. If you've ever smelled Selection Verte, lots of similarities between the styles. You know, Selection Verte is also on my, all of these, I haven't reviewed any of these colognes I just talked about, but the citrusy, fresh, Selection Verte is made up of things like lots of neroli. If you've smelled the neroli in Jacques Fat green water, you'll kind of have an idea of the way the neroli smells. That could be on this topic as well, but it's more neroli heavy with citruses and sort of herbs and peppermints, and most importantly, just a base of ambergris, right? So that's sort of the comparison why I bring those up. So there have been 3 iterations of this bottle since it came out. This was the first iteration, which I think ran through 2021 or 2022. It then changed to the second iteration, which had the Roja-looking cap, if you will, that says Bortnikoff on all sides. If you watch my 7,000 subscriber celebration video yesterday, you'll see a couple bottles that I show that have the second iteration cap. And that iteration I think ran for a year or so, and then they changed it again to what is the current iteration, which I think started in last year or somewhere around 2023, where the cap almost looks like, if you go to Bortnikoff's website, you'll see the modern cap where it's got almost like these lines right here around the metal. So I don't have any of those caps, so I didn't show the newer cap at all, but you'll easily be able to see the difference. It was also $180 for 50 mil when it originally came out. Now it's $220. So it's gone up, but it's much cheaper than the actual Bortnikoff price on things like, for example, Musk Habib or Oud Maximus or Oud Monarch. I think those are around $3 to $350. So since it is a cologne, it's a little bit cheaper in price, but for a cologne, this does everything that I want it to do. And that's why this is one of my absolute favorites, and that's why this is a long time coming. So let's talk about the scent. Let me kind of read you the blurb according to the Bortnikoff website, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. So, olfactory description. Amber Cologne is a shimmering and effervescent creation that captures the energizing and invigorating qualities of citrus fruits and floral aromas. Now, it is February here in Texas, February the 11th. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and it's 50s, rainy, not the type of weather for this, but I wore this yesterday as well when I did my my 7,000 subscriber bash video. And but you know, sometimes in the winter you just want kind of an uplifting citrusy scent to remind you of the warm days of summer. This is perfect for that to me. So it says, as the sun sets and the sultry hot summer air begins to mellow, the aromas of citrus groves and exotic flowers waft through the air. Now, I would say this is probably geared more towards summer. Like if you said, Ramsey, what type of, weather do you usually wear this in? It's usually summer and spring, which, to be honest, in Texas, that's like 9 months out of the year sometimes. So that's just how it goes. I could wear, but even in winter, which Texas's winter, I guess, is maybe more like spring in other places. But even in winter, where it's 40s, 50s, 60s here, this works perfectly fine. And it says, a sense of well-being envelops you as the beautiful scent of amber cologne perfectly complements your mood. Lemon, grapefruit, bergamot, and sweet orange provide a tantalizingly juicy opening, with sambac, jasmine, and frangipani providing the perfect counterpoint. Smooth woods in the heart of the scent segue into exotic oud, ambergris, and vanilla in the base for a fragrance which captures the feeling of a perfect summer evening in an exotic land. Amber cologne is one of the freshest creations and one which can be worn in any situation by men and women alike. I'll agree with that. Completely unisex. We have used the finest quality natural ingredients to produce a scent that is vibrant and bright, yet also rich and complex. Gray and brown ambergris and 2 varieties of real oud make their presence felt in the sensuous and alluring base of the perfume, whilst the citrus and floral accords of the opening linger with great tenacity on the skin. There is some truth to that. This eau de parfum concentration is highly concentrated, ensuring that it lasts for many hours. The high-quality ingredients and masterful blending ensure that the fragrance will take you on a fascinating and highly enjoyable journey. Embrace the aroma of sunshine all year round with amber cologne. There is some truth to all of that. But again, most people, when they think about a cologne, the concentration is usually literally an eau de cologne, right? So it's a lower concentration than eau de toilette, and then even lower than eau de parfum. This is an eau de parfum. So even though it smells like a cologne while you wear it, it does last a pretty long time on the skin. And what I really like about this is, for me, knowing Bortnikoff, and I've done a ton of Bortnikoff reviews, and there's actually a lot more still to come. But knowing Bortnikoff, I've got a playlist, by the way. You can go to my channel, click on playlist, click on the Bortnikoff playlist, and watch all my Bortnikoff reviews. So I know his work pretty well. This is classic Bortnikoff for me. Instantly, as soon as I smelled it, this is my favorite of the colognes. By the way, there are other colognes in this line. I guess you could call it like a line of colognes. And one is called Moss Cologne, which I have a full review on, and it made an appearance on my video yesterday. Another is called Oud Cologne, which I have not reviewed yet, but I might have a decant floating around somewhere. And then last year, or maybe at the end of 2022, he released a trio of colognes, which I hated. They came in like a purple, sort of, one was like orange, one was purple. The front here, instead of being gold, was like a plate colored purple and orange and some red, stuff like that. Hated that line, despised it. Actually, I was so excited because I've never really smelled much from Bortnikoff I didn't like. And then from that point on, it felt like there was a little bit of a turning point in the house. Like, much of the greatness of Bortnikoff was in the past, unfortunately. I was very disappointed with that. I was very disappointed in Scheherazade. So when I say this is like a return to form, I mean, this is when Bortnikoff was in his prime, releasing stuff. And I have heard some people complain that maybe the newer versions have been reformulated. They don't smell like the wood cap versions do, which, by the way, I don't know why he changed it. To me, the wood cap is perfect with the B engraved on the wood. I think this is much more classy than the sort of a little bit tacky gold that they've got going on now. But so what I mean by classic Bortnikoff is this is when he was firing on all cylinders. So when you first spray this on the skin, you're going to get a very realistic, citrusy opening, of course. It's an eau de cologne. Always makes me think of blue summer days, not a cloud in the sky, just rolling blue skies, absolute perfect weather, right? Even though it's probably hot here in Texas. But just imagine that that sunshine, just the brightness of a new day, right? That's what a proper eau de cologne always implies for me. And the thing about this is you get 2 things that Bortnikoff is well known for right out of the gate, okay? The very first thing you're going to notice is that spice combo, which I talked about in many of my Bortnikoff reviews. This spice combo is made up of cardamom and what smells maybe like just a little bit of nutmeg, but it's in the background. So most of his cardamom, it's almost like a patented Bortnikoff cardamom that you get in the beginning. A lot of times it just slaps you in the face with that spice, right? This does the opposite. The spice is there, but it's allowing the bergamot and lemon to kind of take a little bit of it's in the driver's seat. The citruses are allowed to be, in the driver's seat here, but you get that classic Bortnikoff combination in the background. It's absolutely beautiful, in my opinion. And it really kind of speaks to what Bortnikoff is known for, right? the spice, and of course there's also the oud and the ambergris in the base, which we'll talk about. But in the opening, it's the citruses in the driver's seat, while the spice and the florals begin to make an appearance. And the floral actually starts to take over from the citruses a little bit to my nose as the minutes tick by. The combination of florals that you're going to get, which is kind of the second thing that he is really known for, is frangipani. And Dmitry Bortnikoff has this way with florals. I have no clue how he does it. I don't know if it's the ingredients that he is using. I have no clue. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but whatever his secret is, he does florals in a way that I've very rarely smelled. There is an Original Doré called Plumeria de Oris, which I've reviewed. Impossible to find. Very one of his early fragrances, I think. That's a brilliant Plumeria or frangipani fragrance. But Bortnikoff does this frangipani smell like no other to me. I mean, it's a very creamy, sort of tropical smelling fruit. And if you've ever seen those leis that they put on people in Hawaii, so whenever they put the lei on people, that's usually made up of frangipani or plumeria flowers, right? And so it's got a little bit of a creamy aspect to it, a creamy, slightly fruity smell. Some people say it gives off hints of like peaches and stuff like that, but you get the idea, like a peachy, creamy, tropical smelling floral. And Dmitry Bortnikoff uses that along with Jasmine Sambac, which is what I would consider to be like the masculine jasmine. Jasmine grandiflorum is sometimes seen as the old woman jasmine, but I love both. I've learned to really love jasmine, and here it is mixed with the sort of pink grapefruit and sweet orange. Okay, so the opening, you get that eau de cologne citrusy blast, because the eau de cologne was supposed to be just like a freshener. It's supposed to be like a freshen upper, right? Like you spray it on, you get the hit of eau de cologne, like this effervescent. In Bortnikoff's write-up, he called it shimmering and effervescent. It captures that, right? So whenever you spray it, it's supposed to be like this uplifting thing, but it's not supposed to last a long time. It's supposed to be 15, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and it's gone. And that was one of the things that really bothered me about wearing proper vintage eau de colognes, is you have to constantly reapply because they disappear so fast. This solves that problem because it's a eau de parfum. And what ends up happening is it just makes for a very unique citrus opening. Yes, it harkens back to the eau de colognes of the past, but it makes for this opening in a way where, you know, you're going to feel that it is different from the other eau de colognes that you've smelled. I think it's the pink grapefruit and the sweet orange, if you will, kind of giving it that, right? And that floral, the way Dmitry Bortnikoff does his florals is out of this world. He loves using florals that are off the beaten path. Blue lotus and magnolias, and here it's the frangipani. And I feel like people always, in his creations, I always feel like the florals are more prominent than people give it credit for, right? So they always focus on all these other notes. Like in Oud Monarch, it's always the oud and the chocolate and stuff like that. But the magnolia and all those other notes, I think magnolia and frangipani in Oud Monarch, are so much more prominent to my nose. When I wear them, I really get the florals, and yet he executes it in a way where it doesn't feel feminine to me. In fact, it feels like you're wearing a secret, like you're wearing like you have something on that no one else knows about. You know, like you're wearing something top secret. I went to a nice restaurant yesterday, had a brilliant beef Wellington, perfect, one of my favorite meals. Beef Wellington, asparagus, mashed potatoes. And I wore this, and I will wear this on special occasions, Father's Day, something like that, right? This is the type of scent that I like to reach for because it's so classy, and yet it distinguishes you. Like when someone smells this on me, I know that they're thinking, what in the world is that? You know what I mean? Because very few people have this type of scent profile on. It's also classy and elegant while remaining different, if that makes sense. So the jasmine and plumeria combo just feels so luxurious, so elegant, like stepping out of a Rolls-Royce Phantom. There really is something elegant and luxurious about it. There's just no getting away from it. It's very creamy, and I think the creaminess comes from a couple sources. There is sandalwood in the heart. Okay, so you're going to get a little bit of this creamy sandalwood, but also the frangipani adds a creamy aspect so it's like creamy florals, creamy sandalwood comes together is kind of what you're getting. And blending with that very unique white florals. And it's such an just elegant class is kind of the way I would describe it. So Speaking of the blend, many artisanal houses, I would say, catch flack for not being able to blend, right? A lot of folks give them a hard time for just using the materials, right? Saying you're relying on the quality of your materials and you don't know how to blend. And for me, this is almost like a perfect example of a fragrance that disputes that, goes against that sort of stereotype, if you will. This fragrance, I mean, this fragrance to me smells masterfully blended. I don't know. Maybe it's just my opinion. Maybe I'm just a old school Bortnikoff fanboy. I love his early work. I really feel like he peaked very early on. Unfortunately, some of the stuff I've smelled recently, I have not been a fan of. However, I was looking on his releases and he's been pumping stuff out. Apparently, there's a bunch of stuff from 23 and there's even stuff already put out in 2024 I have not smelled. So I don't know where the house is going in the future, but maybe I'm just a fanboy of kind of his old work, if you will. But I think that this is masterfully blended. If you put this under my nose and didn't tell me what it was, I would I could say this was done by a master perfumer. It just feels that way to me. It feels very very properly blended and it tells a story and goes with the flow and just beautifully. So that's my that's my 2 cents on the matter. And if you've noticed, one thing that everyone instantly picks up on are a couple things in the base. So ambergris, which is actually made up of two types of ambergris. You have gray ambergris, and you have brown ambergris. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences here in a minute, but it's also the Indonesian and the Sri Lankan oud, okay? In the Indonesian oud, he calls boya oud. Now, what's interesting, here's the proper official note listing from the brand, if you all want to pause it and read that. But what's interesting about it is boya oud apparently is an oud that is like distilled the second time. So it's like a second distillation. They do a distillation and then they do a second distillation from my understanding of it. So I think it's maybe seen by some as a little bit of a lower level oud, if you will. They don't see it as the high class, very expensive type of ouds. I could be wrong. I've never done a oud distillation myself, but from my research, that's kind of what I perceived. And so there's this boya oud, which sort of what it does, I think the oud in this, so the way to describe the scent, if you're trying to imagine it in your mind, right? That very unique eau de cologne citrus with the Bortnikoff sort of spice in the background, along with that creamy floral, creamy sandalwood. There's a little bit of Virginia cedar with the sandalwood, but mostly it's the creamy sandalwood on my skin. And then it dries down to a base that just feels heavy. It feels like a much heavier base than what you would expect in a normal eau de cologne, okay? And so when people see that note listing, they see the Indonesian oud, they see the Sri Lankan oud, they're thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be animalic. And they see the ambergris, brown ambergris, which we'll talk a little bit about some of the differences here in a moment. But they see that and they think, oh, this is going to be hard to wear, animalic, challenging. The reality is, no, it's not. It's actually a very easy wear. It wears like a simple eau de cologne, but done in a style where the ambergris and the oud, to me, sort of just add this this heft, this depth, like this anchor to the fragrance. Many citruses and heavy citrus fragrances just fly off the skin, right? They just evaporate. The citruses are there and they're gone very quickly because they're very volatile elements. That's why they're top notes in a perfume, because they tend to evaporate off your skin much quicker, right? Well, here, the oud and the ambergris add staying power. It adds depth to it, right? So the ambergris I can get. The ambergris almost feels like it adds that shimmery, just imagine looking out at a body of water and just the shimmering light hitting off of each and every sort of wave in the ocean, and it's just reflecting directly into your eye, that shimmery shininess. That's kind of what the ambergris adds to this composition, and it also adds a little bit of funk, just a little bit of funk. And my guess is that it's coming from the brown ambergris more than the white ambergris, because basically I actually have some white ambergris tincture right here, and I don't know if you can see, but this is white ambergris tincture, thanks to my good friend Russian Adam, who did Feel Oud collaboration with Dmitry Bortnikoff. But if you try and open it up, look at the crystals around the outside. It's almost like it doesn't want me to open it. Like see how it just like popped open, and you see the crystals around the outside, like the ambergris tries to escape. it crystallizes around the top. Well, the longer that the ambergris sits in the ocean and floats and soaks up the materials from the ocean, basically, the water, the air, the sunlight, all of the oceanic like accords, when it comes out of the whale, many people think that it's black, okay? And then as it sits in the ocean, it turns brown, and then basically it ends up turning gray, and then finally white. White is like I think the most sought after because it's been in the ocean the longest, or it's sat on the beach the longest, soaked up the sun and stuff like that, right? But brown ambergris is kind of that stage in between the black and the white or the gray. And the brown ambergris is more animalic. It's supposed to be more like fecal. It has more, just imagine whatever the hell the whale ate that bothered its stomach to where it had to create this ambergris and eject it. Some people say it's out of the front. Some people say it's out of the back. I don't know. I've never seen it happen. I don't think a scientist has ever seen it happen either. But they're guessing that they eject it from the front or the back. Good guesses, scientists. Probably one of those two is a good guess. But however it happens, as it sits in the water and it soaks up all of that sunlight and sea, it begins to lose some of the animalic quality. It still keeps some, obviously, but it loses some of it. Brown is still in the transition, so it still has a little bit of that funk. You don't see brown ambergris used very often. And I think that underlying just a tiny touch, just enough, not enough where it makes you go, oh, this is animalic and challenging. I don't think anyone would spray this on and go, oh, I could never wear that, it's challenging. No, but I think while you're wearing it, it just gives a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of like, what is that, you know? What is that I'm smelling that is underneath the beautiful citruses and florals and spices and sandalwood that is just giving a little bit of funk? And that's where I think the oud acts with the ambergris to kind of work as a fixative on your skin. And it's beautiful. I think it takes that eau de cologne to the type of composition that I would want to wear, right? I mean, I'm wearing it in February because I want to be reminded of summer and I want to do this review for you guys. But that is sort of I think the trick, one of the secrets to this composition. And he's done some other colognes, which again, I've reviewed on the channel, but this is my favorite. Of all of his colognes that he's done, this is my favorite because it just captures that. And many people see amber and they think, oh, this is going to be amber. This is going to be like an ambery composition. It's not. It's ambergris. It's the gray amber. And it highlights that note beautifully, but it's not in your face is the thing. So there are other compositions, like for example, yesterday I showed Atlantic Ambergris, which I have reviewed both on the channel, 1 and 2 from Maurice Ladore. I talked about Ambrosia by Sherwood. I've showed some Ensars, which have heavy ambergris in there, ambergris tincture. Those are going to be more prominent. You know, I've talked about some Eris Parfums fragrance. I think MXXX has a pretty heavy ambergris note. Stuff like that. I've talked about some of those fragrances on the channel that if you're going for the ambergris hit, like if you're going for, I want to smell ambergris, those are going to do it better. If you want to smell oud, there's hundreds, thousands of fragrances that can do it better. Just go to my list from yesterday and just go down the list. There's so many that the oud note is much more prominent in here. But what Bortnikoff has done is he's taken the style of fragrance and just added enough of these interesting notes that give it a twist. And it gives it a twist in classic Dmitry Bortnikoff style, and in a way that just fits me and my personality perfectly. So as far as like a eau de cologne with a twist of real ambergris and real oud, this is what I would recommend. And the price is not outrageous. I mean, $220 is expensive, but it's not so expensive compared to what we've been seeing today, especially for 50 mil, you know. I think you can still kind of spray. 50 mils is a lot of juice, especially when you have a big collection. So yes, that's kind of my take. If you have experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Oh, the last thing is the vanilla. I almost forgot. The vanilla adds just a little bit of sweetness. It's not too much, okay? So don't see that vanilla note. I think it works in tandem with the creamy sandalwood and the frangipani beautifully. And the citruses really do last. It really feels like the citruses last into the dry down, along with that creamy frangipani, which also really lasts, but mixes with the sort of vanilla, but not too much. I think he did a beautiful job of sort of giving some masculine notes. The Virginia cedar, the jasmine sambac can be seen as a masculine version of the jasmine. You know, eau de colognes traditionally have been seen for men. Men wore some of these eau de colognes I mentioned a lot in the past. They were marketed kind of towards men. but the way Bortnikoff kind of did everything with the transitions in this fragrance and the creamy florals and stuff like that, and the vanilla, I think this would smell absolutely stunning on a woman that was willing to wear something outside of the norm, other than kind of like the bubblegum sweet shit that's being put out nowadays over and over again. They want to wear something that's different and unique. This would definitely make them stand out. So, okay, that's my review. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thanks everyone for watching as always. Thank you for the 7,000 subscribers, to each and every one of you who have subscribed. I'm very grateful to you, and I can't wait to see what the next 7,000 subscribers looks like. So cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.